Broadcasting live from the sanctum of all on the plain of Kamigawa, this is Tap Tap Concede. Welcome everybody to Tap Tap Concede. I'm Graham. Joining me is Nelson.
Hi.
And Cameron.
Hello.
And we're here to talk about Magic the Gathering, particularly in this instance M21, because we got to play some of it at the PPR this past week, and it was a fun time. And before we get into that, of course, a reminder that this show and everything we do is brought to you by you and your kind support of our Patreon at patreon.com/loadingreadyrun. And of course, because I'm doing it in a different order and I don't know why, this show is also brought to you by Card Kingdom. Do check out cardkingdom.com/LRR because they're a great bunch of folks and they'll ship you your cards real fast. And you can say, Loading Ready Run sent me button, please, and they'll give you a little 1-inch button, and I don't know what it says right now. I think they might be waiting for more to arrive. Sanctum of all, shrines. Huh?
Oh, baby. We've been waiting so long.
So is this like, all the shrines are definitely on Kamigawa, and there's other cards in the set that are like, that's Kamigawa. So is this like, aha, the teaser of we'll be returning to Kamigawa soon, or is this like, all right, here, have this. This is the Kamigawa you get. Now shut up.
Like we have Kamigawa at home.
It's like the, was it M14 or M15 that had Chandra being at that monastery on the same plane where the video game was set?
Oh, Chandelar.
Chandelar, yeah.
Wow, I forgot about that.
Maybe this is the Kamigawa we have at home.
It's a great question, and I think the latter is more likely.
That it's just like, fine, look, here's some Kamigawa stuff to keep you occupied so that you'll stop yelling at Mark Rosewater.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know.
In the case of this, he explicitly encourages the Kamigawa weebs to be like, yes, we know you're out there. Keep making noise.
We see you, Kamigawa lovers, Kamigawa fans of the world. I think it's like hard to do a second Kamigawa because there's so many feelings wrapped up in the first Kamigawa and the appreciation of it, or not. Like people are really polarized about Kamigawa, I think, where they like really disliked it or really liked it or have, strong feelings one way or the other. So that, I think for that reason, makes it a difficult plane to approach.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable. So this past Monday, a week prior to this episode, we got to do the M21 pre-release, which was, in the manner of traditional pre-releases, the first time that anybody outside Wizards of the Coast had a chance to play with these cards, which was super cool. And if you haven't had a chance to see it and all of the other ancillary bonus content that we did within it, the replay of it will by now be up elsewhere on this channel, so do go check it out. But how did you guys find the set? I know, Nelson, you only played the one match against spoilers. You only played the one match against Surge at the end there, but how do you both enjoy yourself?
I liked it a lot. This set seems to have some really fun and interesting synergies in it that can apply across a couple of different archetypes. Like the blue synergy of drawing a second card in a turn, producing a bonus. Yeah. That seems broadly applicable, right? I thought it had a lot of interesting interplay and some good cards at common for limited players. Things like Grasp of Darkness, allowing you to like play magic, unsubstantiate at uncommon. And a card that I was really impressed with, which was Lofty Denial at common.
Which one's Lofty Denial?
Lofty Denial is a 1 and a blue instant which counters target spell unless, the controller pays 1 mana. So it's censor kind of without the cycling, but it has another line of text, which is if you control a creature with flying, counter that spell unless its controller pays 4 generic mana instead. Blue-white wants you to be playing flying spells, but that also applies with a lot of other, like, blue-X archetypes, or even just mono-blue. And yeah, you can hold this up on 2 to force spike something, or it also works later in the game, right? Like, 4 is a reasonable amount of mana. Like, that outperforms Mana League. And I'm feeling good about this one.
4 is not usually an amount of mana that you can comfortably ever play around keeping up.
Yeah.
Like, obviously you have some games where you have tons and tons of mana, but most of the time it's like, if you are thinking about your opponent's soft counters, it's like you can only really get to 3, if the tempo of the game matters at all.
And then like just other good cards around, like Tome Anima. I didn't get to play Tome Anima, but I saw other people play it, and it seems good. For 3 and a blue, you get a 3/3 spirit that can't be blocked as long as you've drawn 2 or more cards this turn.
Now, remember also that on your turn, you've already done half of that work by just drawing your card for the turn. You only need 1 extra card to make your 3/3 unblockable.
3/3 hits.
3/3 unblockable can't be ignored, and if you're reliably making it unblockable, that's a real problem for your opponent.
Absolutely.
And you're not even really overpaying for this. It's just a hill giant, right? It's 4 mana for a 3/3.
I think you can comfortably fit that into a deck, although it does compete with another card that I was really impressed with, which is Tide Skimmer. For 3 and a blue, you get a 2/3 Drake with flying, and a line of text that reads, whenever you attack with 2 or more creatures with flying, draw a card. Note that doesn't have to be the Tide Skimmer itself. So if you have 2 Tide Skimmers, you draw 2 cards. This can snowball quite impressively, and I was really happy with it. The only downside is that it's competing at the 4 slot, right? With like Tome Anima, and then also, you know, other good cards like Skeleton Archer, my boy Skeleton Archer, who I love forever, or the 2 and 2 white cat that buffs your entire team.
Oh, Basrah's Acolyte.
Yeah, and kills you and makes Cameron cry.
Yeah, Basrah's Acolyte is 2 white for a 2/3 that when it enters the battlefield, you put a +1/+1 counter on each of up to 2 other creatures that you control. And that gets out of hand. If you go like 2-drop, 3-drop that, it's a real big deal.
Yep. So there are some decisions to be made there because, you know, as much as I want to, I mean, you can play all your 4-drops. Should you? Yes. Will you win? I feel in my heart of hearts, yes. But evidence suggests otherwise, which is no fun.
There's a lot. It comes up in, because I played red-green, and it comes up in those colors as well, because there's a non-keyworded ferocious sub-theme, which is cares about having a creature with power 4 or greater. And it's tough to get a creature with 4 power at less than 4 mana. Like there's the Onake Ogre, which is a 4/2 for 3, and that kind of sucks. And so, you know, yeah, you've got a lot of expensive creatures if you want to be trying to make that deck work. And yeah, there's a lot of competition at the higher mana costs. Unless, of course, you're Adam, who drafts mono white weenie and just goes undefeated on the day.
Oh, like not even draft. Opens mono white weenie. How dare.
It was weird.
I've taken beatings at the PPR before, but rarely has someone just like cut 20 cards from a standard deck.
I got dismantled.
Man, watching what people who are good at this game can do is, I don't like it.
Yeah, I didn't win a game all day. It was. I mean, I still had a ton of fun, but yeah, it was a path of destruction. I
would love to dedicate the remainder of my time to a call out post here, calling out Caravaca the Spiteful. And this guy is just, it's not accidentally named. I hate this card so much. I had him in my pool, and there was no point in any game where he was, what's the word? Good?
What does Caravaca do?
Caravaca is a legendary human warlock for 2 and 2 black. You get a 3/2 body with a line of text on it that reads, other creatures get -1/-1. And like, as it turns out, -1/-1 is kind of like important when you're playing a lot of cards like, oh, I don't know, Keen Glidemaster, Fetid Imp, Sky Scanner, was Liliana's Standard Bearer. He basically just killed my entire deck and debuffed my opponents down to like 6/6s. It was awful. It was a terrible experience. I feel that like Caravaca is just like, you invite Caravaca into your deck, and the first thing he does is just absolutely demolish the bathroom.
Like he just shows up. He doesn't take his boots off, and then he sits on your couch and just puts his boots on your coffee table, and he's just like, hey, I'm an on-color rare, you have to play me.
Yeah, and then like queues up 60 minutes of like YouTube videos on your Chromecast, and then just goes and takes over the John.
This is a rich tapestry you're weaving.
I hate him so much. I hate you, Caravaca. And it's made worse by the fact that I know I'm going to get utterly laid to waste by him.
That's always the worst.
Yeah, because he like kills all of the creatures that I like in this format. Right? The aforementioned X1s or 1Xs. Right? It's just awful. It's awful. It's awful. I hate him. I hate him. I hate him.
I probably guess I guess you try to play him in. I mean, I assume never play him ever again, but I assume one tries to play him in like a black green where like all your creatures are bigger than theirs anyway. When Caravaca comes out, your creatures are still bigger than theirs, but some of theirs also just die.
Yeah, and like I think he's important for dealing with opponents like fetid imps, right? Like the one power creatures with death touch. No.
Hey,
no.
I want to ask you about a card that's like basically the card designed for Cameron.
Mm-hmm.
The Pursued Whale.
Ah, yes, Moby Dick. Let's look at Pursued Whale. For 5 and 2 blue, you get an 8/8 whale. The lines of text: when Pursued Whale enters the battlefield, each opponent creates a 1/1 red pirate creature token with this creature can't block, and creatures you control attack each combat if able. Spells your opponents cast that target Pursued Whale cost 3 generic more to cast. So I don't know if you know this about me, but I love this book called Moby Dick. It's good. It's actually a really like good, fun read. No, it's actually like quite funny. The narrator, who calls himself Ishmael, I think it would be a relatable character for a lot of people out there because he just kind of like takes this job on a whaling ship because it'll pay him right away, right? He's basically like a gig economy worker, right? Who's taken like kind of a bad job at a .com thing, being like a junior engineer.
Right away, I feel like I have some commiseration.
Yeah, and like he and his husband just go on this adventure, and Ishmael comes out all right. He has a happy ending, I feel. Even many of the characters in the book have a happy ending in that they get what they want in the end.
Does the whale have a happy ending?
I feel that the whale, for whatever it is aware that it is in a book, is like, I think I felt an itch there for a moment. Weird. I'm going to continue on swimming around being a giant whale and not really noticing what's happening to me.
Now, a question for you, Cam, as someone who has read the book more than once. Would you consider, I don't know if this is anything you've ever thought about, do you consider Captain Ahab a red creature?
I gave this a bit of thought when I read this card, and I think, yeah, Ahab is probably, at some point, was a reasonable man, and he just had a very bad reaction to a traumatic event, where, they were hunting this whale, this abnormally large whale, and the whale did not like to be hunted, and Ahab's leg became detached, and then presumably sank, and he did not take that well. And it's interesting because in the novel, one of the things that happens to them is that they sail around looking for whales to hunt. They hunt the whales. You get 60 pages of them processing whales. And the other thing that happens is they encounter other whaling ships, right? And they trade like novels. But one of the other whaling captains is kind of Ahab's twin in that he has lost an arm to the whale. And his approach is entirely different. He's like, yeah, this is a dangerous job, and this happens to people. And I don't hate the whale, because that's not reasonable, right? Like, it was a weird industrial accident that basically happened. And Ahab is mad about that, because he was very excited to meet somebody who he thought would be able to relate to him. And this guy just is like, no, dude.
No, dude, get good.
Yeah, just like, you have to... This is not healthy.
I have a follow-up question about the whale. Do you think your draft deck will be happy if you draft this whale?
I think this whale is going to love eating one creature that just comes trundling across the board due to this token, right? This is like the world's slowest Doomblade.
Yeah, it's like an FTK or a Necrotal, but in that way that's kind of fair and like that, I can't imagine this card ever sees constructed play, but like is pretty good and limited, probably, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is expensive, obviously, but you get something for it. It's even kind of hard for them to stop you because they have to pay 3 more to Doomblade the Whale so that your creatures don't have to just trundle right into the whale's gaping maw.
Yeah,
very clever.
like
it's a cool design for a card.
Yeah, exactly. Like the common black removal in this set is at 5 mana. So if you're kind of like at land parity, they will probably not be able to use it on the whale, right?
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
just going to cost them too much. So you'll get something, and then you'll be able to crack back pretty easily, right?
Yes. Before we stop talking about 4-drops, because we were doing that earlier, we took an aside, but there was one that I got to play. I was also red-green. I think a bunch of us were red-green, and I'm not the only one who played Hunter's Edge, but I was very surprised to see this card when it was in my booster packs in my sealed kit. 3 generic and a green for a sorcery. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Then that creature deals damage equal to its power to target creature you don't control. So
yeah, it's just way better than Hunt the Weak.
Yeah, it's just Hunt the Weak, but your creature doesn't take damage. And Hunt the Weak was already like a quite good card for green core set decks. Usually you're happy to see it. Usually your creature had more toughness than your opponents anyway. Or if it didn't, the +1/+1 counter would probably get there. And now you don't even have to worry about it. You can use Hunter's Edge with like a weird, 4/1 creature or something, or an Unlucky Ogre that would normally die is now just a 5/3 that killed a creature. So this is in my opinion, a very push limited card. Like this is perhaps unnecessary power creep, since like green in draft actually hasn't been a problem the way green in constructed has been a problem over the last year and a half, I think, but it still just sort of seems like, wow, it's going to be harder for me to pass these.
Yeah, no, agreed.
Yeah, this one's very, very scary. Speaking also of green 4-drops, I am a big fan of the Sabertooth Mauler. It's 3 and a green for a 3/3 cat. At the beginning of your end step, if a creature died this turn, put a +1/+1 counter on Sabertooth Mauler and untap it. So it's this secret morbid keyword in there. And this thing just gets out of hand. Like, it's limited. Creatures die all the time. And you can do the thing where you wait on it. Like you do combat and your opponent's like, sure, I'll block with this one. I'll just throw this 1/1 token away because whatever, I'll save myself 4 life or something. And then you're like, great, cool, play this, pass the turn, and then it just is immediately a 4/4 for 4. And they might not have made that block if you'd played that beforehand. It's
yeah, it actually reminds me a little bit of the Rakdos mechanic. The one from the last set, Brain, Spectacle, where your opponent will make these attacks and you're like, I think I can profitably trade here, but what if they have this other card that's going to turn that profitable trade into a problem, right? Where they'll be able to get value off of that, right? And that's always going to be something that's going to like sit in the back of your head when you're trying to do like combat math, where it's just another way that you can get got.
Yeah. Wheeler had a bunch of good cards in his sealed, but it seemed like every time I was judging him and watching his games, it was just always this cat that was kind of like, well, I'm a tiny bit ahead, and then I play this, and then I attack, and then now I'm just going to keep getting further and further ahead.
Yeah, no, it seems good, right? Because also, doesn't green have a kind of stealthy, cares about +1/+1 counters mechanic going on?
Yes, there are a few.
Yeah. Green and white both have some payoffs. I actually had one in my deck. I'm just flipping through it right now to find it because it's a Hydra. There it is. Uncommon Hydra, Wildwood Scourge. So at its base, it's just an Ivy Elemental. Again, right? That was in Ikoria. It's a 0/0 for X and a green, and it enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters. So it's the vanilla test, the card. Well, I guess it's a little worse than that, but anyhow. It also says whenever 1 or more +1/+1 counters are put on another non-Hydra creature you control, you also put a +1/+1 counter on this Wildwood Scourge. So it just keeps getting bigger if you're putting stuff on other creatures.
Yeah, I like that card.
Also, there's the Pride Malkin, the 2 and a green for a 2/1 cat. When it enters the battlefield, you put a counter on a creature you control, and it just has the static ability that's all creatures you control with +1/+1 counters have trample.
Yeah, right, which was, I want to say we saw a very similar card to this in Khans of Tarkir, right? I mean, then it the Obzon mechanic, but yeah.
Right, Outlast. There was an Outlast Lord for trample, certainly. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, same line of text.
And this just has better art, I feel. I don't even remember what that card was, but I'd be willing to put money on this being better art.
This smug-ass cat.
intolerably smug.
Certainly cuter art.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the white +1/+1 counters matters card. I didn't have this one, but Tempered Veteran seems like kind of a cool card. It's 1 and a white for a 1/2, so like Squire, and the art even looks like Squire, although it says it's a veteran. It has 2 abilities, but I'll read the second one first. 4 generic and 2 white, so 6 mana, and tap it. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. That's really not a great ability, but it also has pay a white and tap it. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature with a +1/+1 counter on it. So this is a payoff card for +1/+1 counter synergies, since as long as you can activate the first ability, that's a pretty decent card.
I had in my deck the most impressive rare, I suppose. My deck was not astonishing. The most impressive rare I had was Volcanic Salvo, which was very interesting. So it's 10 red for a sorcery. It deals 6 damage to each of up to 2 target creatures and or planeswalkers. But it costs X less to cast, where X is the total power of creatures you control. And by the time I got to the point in the game where I wanted to actually cast it, I did a quick sort of tally. I was like, okay, well, this costs red. Like, I had 2 power, 2 power, 2 power, and a 5/7. And I was like, oh, that's 11. I get to pay 2 red to deal 12 damage.
That seems really good.
Seems hot.
Yeah.
If only you could go to the face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's what Volcanic Geyser's for. Not the Salvo, the Geyser. They're both volcanic, but yeah, the Geyser goes to face. That's just X red for an instant that deals X damage to any target.
Oh, nice. I didn't have that one, but I also had the Salvo in my deck, and I drew.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I drew it once, but it didn't do anything. But I won that game, so Should we talk about our matches a little bit?
Yeah, no, I'm happy to talk about matches.
I'll go first. I played last. I was the bonus round since the event went so quickly. Well done, everyone, for playing good paces of Magic. Your judges appreciate it, and I'm sure the viewers did as well. I played Surge in the final round of the tournament. I played red-green, and Surge, I believe, was Bant. He had some, I want to say he had some bomb in green or some bomb in white. Maybe I'll remember by the end of the podcast. But I just played a straightforward Gruul deck that included our cool preview card, the Stuffy Doll Goblin. That's like slightly better than Stuffy Doll, although it costs red mana. Brash Taunter.
Oh,
yeah.
Brash Taunter, yeah.
So yeah, if you hadn't seen our preview video already, 4 generic and a red for a 1/1 Goblin with Indestructible, whenever Brash Taunter is dealt damage, it deals that much damage to target opponent. And it also has an activated ability of 2 and a red. Tap it. Brash Taunter fights another target creature. So yeah, I mean, this is like just way better than a Stuffy Doll, I think, in limited, because normally Stuffy Doll can kind of gum up the ground, but this one actually it keeps you from dying, and then also actively kills your opponent if they have creatures. So I would have liked to have drawn it, but I didn't. I just had a solid curve of like lots of 2s, a few combat tricks, a lot of creatures in red and green, and then the sort of other exciting part. I had a Volcanic Salvo. I did have that Ivy Elemental we were talking about earlier, and I had 2 copies of Scavenging Ooze, which is...
You had 2 of them?
Yeah, my promo was Scavenging Ooze. I never drew that one, and then I also had the cool full art bleed Scavenging Ooze. Yeah. Scavenging Ooze is a pretty decent limited card. Not like... The thing about Scavenging Ooze is like, it's not always busted in draft. Sometimes you would rather just have like a 6-drop that does more things, but the time I drew it was really good, so I'm not complaining. I do love Scavenging Ooze. And yeah, I managed to just barely outpace Surge's Lore Scale Coatl in game 1 by getting my skews up to a 16/16. It's better if you play a lot of creatures in your deck.
Yeah, I always forget about the life gain clause.
Yeah.
Which can be meaningful in races.
Yeah, we had a pretty cool back and forth in game 1 where I had one tough decision whether or not to trade like a 2/2 of mine for a 3/2 of his after the 3/2 had been buffed and fought one of my other bigger creatures. And so it was like I would have taken 7 damage, or I could just put a 2/2 in front and I get to trade, which seems better overall. But then as the game played out, I would have won quicker if I had just kept that 2/2 on board and taken the first 7 damage.
Probably also worth pointing out that Scoos actually synergizes well in limited decks because it does both white's life gain thing and green's +1/+1 counter payoff. Kudos to WotC for like making good cards, but also like making sure they work in all environments.
Yeah, I think they do that a lot, and we sometimes miss it because they'll like include some card that's like so much farther up on the power level than all the cards in the like common uncommon limited theme, but that includes the same theme or works well with them. But it's hard to even think of it as being part of the set because just like, oh, well, you don't need any other cards to synergize with Scavenging Ooze, right? Like you don't need a card that cares about +1/+1 counters. But yeah, if I did have a game with that deck where I played the Scavenging Ooze after I had the Hydra on board, it's like, okay, now I'm going to attack for 50 instead of 20 or whatever, because you just get to put so many counters on that Hydra.
I don't remember a lot of my matches, to be honest, because I just got destroyed. I mean, I played against Adam, who had the very, very fast and efficient mono white weenie deck that was just real strong, and Feat of Resistance is an absolutely backbreaking combat trick. What makes it so good is that it not only makes the trade happen, but it leaves a +1/+1 counter left over. So it's not just a combat trick, it's a combat trick plus that has a bonus upside to your game going forward. I mean, it's small, but still it's a 2-mana card. And then I played against Wheeler later in the day, and that was just like, his Gruul deck was so much better than my Gruul deck. You know, he had 2 copies of Shock and Scorching Dragonfire, and it felt like I could never really get my feet under me. The thing is, I liked my deck with, 2 Sky Scanners. Always take the Sky Scanner. But I had a lot of fun watching. Well, I mean, I had a lot of fun playing all day, even if I didn't really, win myself. But I also enjoyed watching some of the other decks. I liked Kathleen's blue-white deck with Nyame B, which Nyame B is blue-white for a 2/1 with flash. And when it's Nyame B Esteemed Speaker, when she enters the battlefield, you may return another target creature you control to its owner's hand. If you do, you gain life equal to that creature's converted mana cost. And then she has this activated ability for 1 white, blue, and tap and discard a legendary card, draw 2 cards. That's way less likely to come up in limited. But so really it's 2 mana for this was a card in Return to Ravnica block.
Yeah, there was Law Mage that did it, I want to say, at Uncommon.
Yeah, it was a gold card. It was a blue-white, and it would swoop in and save something. But yeah, so you get to, 2/1 for 2 with flash. You get to flash her in, bounce one of your creatures that's having removal targeted at it, and save it, and also gain some life in exchange for losing your tempo. I think Nyame's pretty cool if you're in blue-white.
Reminds me a lot of one of my all-time favorite cards, which is Cavern Harpy.
Kathleen also had 2 copies of Basrah's Acolyte, which is neat. One of them in the fancy frames. All the cool different art and different frames and stuff looks rad. I really like how everything looks in this set. I'm just flipping through her deck right now too. I forgot. They reprinted Faith's Fetters in this set.
Yeah, with the cool dual decks art.
Yeah, so that's awesome. Faith's Fetters 3 and a white for an aura enchant permanent. So it's not just creature. Enchanted permanent can't attack or block, and its activated abilities can't be activated unless they're mana abilities. So you can shut down a creature easily or a planeswalker. And also, when it enters the battlefield, you gain 4 life just for fun.
Yeah.
It's a very powerful limited card. It actually did get played in Standard a fair bit the first time it was around.
You get to stop equipment from being equipped. You get, there's all kinds of activated abilities and things you can stop.
You can put it on a land.
Yeah, you can. It won't stop mana abilities, but if it's like Labyrinth of Scophos, you'll stop it from being able to remove creatures from combat, for example.
Yeah, or the mobilized community or whatever, like the creature lands.
Oh, yeah, mobilized district, yeah. And then she also had Teferi.
Yeah.
Teferi's very strong.
Did Serge have to do a phasing rules call? I didn't actually see that this part of the PPR. I was around for those games.
Oh yeah, she was phasing some stuff. Yeah, so Teferi is 2 blue for 3 loyalty planeswalker, and he has this static ability that says you can activate his loyalty abilities on any player's turn at any time you can cast an instant. So that meant that she could do stuff on the opponent's turn. Now the problem was that his +1 ability is draw a card then discard a card. And more's the pity for Kathleen, because her deck was basically like surrounded drawing cards. Like she had the blue Sanctum, she had Teferi and everything. And one of her matches was against Ben Ulmer, who was running a mill deck with Teferi's tutelage, and very successfully, I will add. And so she was like, well, I actually don't want to be drawing cards here. So that was kind of unfortunate.
That is like the most awkward thing in Magic, when you choose not to draw cards. It hurts so much.
It's brutal.
The only time I saw it in our match was when I got it with a Kite Sail freebooter, which I saw it and I was like, oh yeah, no, we have to take that immediately because Teferi is so powerful, which made me feel a little conflicted because I want people to play their cards in games, just not against me, right? Like I want to see people's like big bomby mythics do their thing in a PPR, but against somebody else, please. Anyway, I guess I'm fun police here.
Well, I love that she was just reading through the cards in her hand when the hand was revealed, and you were like, that one.
Yeah, I think I may have like phased out personally when that card was revealed.
How did the rest of your games go, Cameron?
Oh, my other match was against Adam, and Adam just like folded me 4 times in half and then neatly placed me in a drawer, like just crammed me into a locker. And it was a beating and a half. The interplay between Basrah's Acolyte and the wall that gives +1/+0 to attacking creatures you control? It just meant like everything was a threat, right? Everything just came down and did a lot of damage, and these walls kind of prevented me from cracking back meaningfully, especially if you token on or like a counter on them. Warded battlements, 2 and a white for an 0/3 wall, defender, naturally, and attacking creatures you control get +1/+0. And just having 2 of those and 2 acolytes meant, a lot of turns where pretty innocuous creatures were swinging for 5.
Yeah, this was a big part of Adam's deck, and it actually was surprisingly strong, this little 0/3 for 3 wall. And then, yeah, it's like giving your creatures a anthem when they attack is, pretty powerful. Also, Vryn Wingmare is uncommon at this point.
Oh wow!
For some reason,
I didn't catch that. I noticed the grow creature in green, the Aquarian Dryad, but I didn't realize that Vryn Wingmare was also downshifted.
Yeah, so 2 and a white for a 2/1 flyer. Non-creature spells cost 1 more to cast, and in Adam's deck with his 2 copies of Warded Battlements in play, attacks as a 4/1 in the air and makes all of Cameron's stuff harder to do.
Yep.
Where was your Caravaca? That's like the perfect target for Caravaca.
Well, you'd see, Caravaca was Sir not appearing in this match in that situation. It was just, that's so Caravaca. That's basically all I have to say about that match was yikes.
Well, I'm sorry you both had to play Adam. I hadn't seen that Warded Battlements card yet. And I think my initial estimation of this card, I would have had a tough time figuring out whether or not it was good. But yeah, like it's cool that your defensive card plays offense, obviously, helping your attackers, and combines well with flyers. Like, walls in white and blue, you tend to see them more in decks that have more flying creatures. So this clearly synergizes well with that.
Yeah, like that strategy, all it wants to do is hold down the ground and then beat in the air, right?
I think it's also lucky that Warded Battlements looks like a card that sucks, and so no one else is going to want it.
I think you can probably quite confidently pick these up late in a draft.
Yeah, there's 0 points of power in the stat box, and there's no character in the art, right? It doesn't seem to be a glory moment in terms of magic art. No, it's no Rada Heir to Kel or Ugin the Spirit Dragon or Rin and Seri Inseparable. It's not a focal point of the battlefield, right?
So, initial impressions of M21, pretty sweet, honestly.
Yeah, I'm for it.
These cool alternate art cards just come in the packs. I didn't realize that. I thought the neat lands and the neat scavenging units would only be in the collector boosters or something. And they were just in the booster packs in my pre-release kit. So that was sweet.
Yeah, I mean, I think much like Ikoria, the stuff in the showcase frames can show up from time to time in regular boosters, but that the collector boosters are like, here's a bunch of them all at once. But they do look really, really sweet. Someone, I can't remember who had the Chandra's Magma. That's the one that's on fire, and it looked really sweet.
I had a couple of those. I think more than one of us.
That was you.
Yeah, I think more than one of us had them though.
I mean, I had a normal Magma, but that's not nearly as cool as the one that's engulfed in flames.
Right. I just opened 2 that were engulfed in flames, so I haven't even seen the normal one.
Holy moly!
I got a pretty cool pre-release kit. Thanks, James.
Yeah. Wow.
Before we go, sorry, real quick. Did anyone, because we started off talking about the shrines and we're broadcasting from the Shrine of All, did anyone play any of them or consider playing them or see them during the pre-release? Are they playable?
Yes. So Kathleen played the blue one and splashed for the black one, as well as some removal. And the blue one, Sanctum of Calm Waters, 3 and a blue, legendary. Because again, they're all legendary, so you can only play one of each color. At the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, to avoid the upkeep, so it's pre-combat main phase, you may draw X cards, where X is the number of shrines you control. If you do, discard 1 card. So no matter how many you draw, you're only discarding 1, so that gets much better. But worst case scenario, you may loot every turn, which again helps with all your if you would draw 2 cards this turn thing. And then she was also running Sanctum of Stone Fangs, which is 1 and a black for the legendary shrine. At the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, each opponent loses X life and you gain X life, where X is the number of shrines you control. So both of these, I think, these are the kind of in the payoff realm, and some of the other ones, like the white one, is like kind of a letdown. It's the Sanctum of Tranquil Light, single white mana, 5 and a white, tap target creature. This ability costs 1 less to activate for each shrine you control. So it's 6 mana to tap a creature. But wait, if you have 2 shrines, it's only 5 mana. It's like, that's not good.
It counts itself. So the ability always is going to cost 5, right?
Okay, you're right.
It's not
That's
each other shrine. You would think it said each other shrine, but it's each shrine. So if you have 2, it goes down to 4. Now that's still expensive.
It's still not good, I think. But it only costs 1 white mana, so if you throw it in your deck as an additional shrine just to sort of count shrines, then that's fine. The red one, Sanctum of Shattered Heights, 2 and a red, for 1 mana and for 1 generic mana, and discard a land or shrine. It deals X damage to target creature or planeswalker, where X is the number of shrines you control. That's not spectacular.
Both of these activated ability ones seem like they're really outside the normal, wheelhouse of Hondens, and frankly seem like just the 2 that you would splash if you're kind of playing all of them.
Yeah, and the green one is Sanctum of Fruitful Harvest, 2 and a green. At the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, add X mana of any one color, where X is the number of shrines you control. And that one's all right. But I think the blue one and the black one are definitely the best. And if you can if you have those, and then you can sneak another couple of the other ones in there just as enablers, then awesome. I think we're not going to see someone popping off with. It's not going to turn into the cycling deck where it's like, oh, here come the shrine deck. May as well scoop it up, But I think they're fun. I'm glad they're there.
I think that green one's good.
I don't know. Maybe it's time to get the Hondens, get the shrines, and then you get the sanctuaries from Apocalypse. They're not shrines, but they kind of look like it on the art, and they don't work really well. But Daga Sanctuary is gorgeous.
That sounds like some commander shenanigans that I'm here for.
Yeah, are we gonna
right?
Stuff it into like a monk deck or a priest deck? Like, what's the appropriate commander for your shrines deck? There's got to be a right answer, but I don't know what it is. Tune in next week. Yeah. Let's tackle that one on the next episode of Tap Tap Concede.
Or maybe we will forget. That's going to do it for this week. Thanks for joining us for some initial impressions of Core Set M21. Until next time, cardkingdom.com/LRR, those wonderful people that bring you this show, and the other wonderful people that bring you this show, why, it's you and your kind support of our Patreon at patreon.com/loadingreadyrun. Thanks always just for being here and listening. We do appreciate it. And for Nelson,
bye. Thanks for listening.
And Cameron,
me,
I have been Graham. Paul was here helping out on cards, and Heather gets these online. And thank you all so much for listening. We'll talk to you next time.